Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Nice Girls. Nice Girls is a French crime comedy that tells the story of Leo, a police officer in the city of Nice who discovers his brother Ludo has been killed in Hamburg during an investigation. She's forced to team up with a German cop named Melanie, who is also looking into the death, and the pair just so happen to have a hidden connection between them. While they try to figure out who's responsible for Ludo's death, the pair get held back by the police chief, who wants more focus placed on providing security detail for a petroleum exhibition in the city, which sees the two uncover a conspiracy they have to stop before a threat is unleashed. This is another example of a lazy buddy cop comedy that doesn't do anything to stand out, and the few qualities it does have going for it don't shine in the best of ways. Even though there are things to appreciate about it, it mostly gets lost in a boring story and unfunny comedy that makes the movie feel longer than it is. To start, there's really nothing worth mentioning about the main character Leo. The audience never gets a sense of the emotional weight of her brother's death and how it affects her. The motivation is there, but her acting and the way she's written into focusing on the story at hand leaves little room for her to develop outside of a voice message of her brother that she listens to, which is more weird than moving. Honestly, her character isn't horrible, she's just forgettable. She has so few redeeming qualities beyond being the driving force behind the story, and she's not by herself when it comes to that motivation. So really, both main characters feel like the same person throughout, which is pretty dull. This leads me to talk about the other lead character, Melanie. She's investigating Ludo's death too, but for a different motive, in that Ludo was actually her boyfriend. This could be interesting, but like with Leo, her relationship with Ludo is never explored beyond surface level props that hint at their dynamic. Again, she's a competent character to help the story keep going along, but there's just nothing interesting about her. She's the same copycat police officer as Leo and everyone else, just with a different face and the fact she's German. I wish I could say more about the characters and that their relationship with Ludo meant something more to them, but they're really that boring. There is more when it comes to their dynamic with each other, but not in a good way. For some reason, they're extremely antagonistic with each other from the outset, which is already cliché, but they never grow to trust each other more until much later into the story. So there's just as little development with their relationship as there is with Ludo and by themselves. It just comes off as a very stale retread of several other buddy cop comedies that have done way better with pairing up oddball characters together and having them gradually trust each other more. Their constant butting heads with each other becomes incredibly tiresome, and it makes the film's story less fun to watch. And this murder mystery is already tedious to begin with. The whole process behind figuring out who's responsible for killing Ludo plods along at a slow pace, and because there's so many distractions that shift attention away from the mystery, the story ends up feeling aimless. There's so many scenes in this movie that have absolutely nothing to do with what happens in the story. A lot of them are there just for the sake of comedy and to make people laugh, but because they don't connect well or at all with the plot, it just makes them more annoying than humorous. Another part of the problem is that the movie doesn't have a solid grasp of who the main villain is supposed to be. Anytime they encounter and deal with a bad guy, another one pops up for the pair to focus on. I know it's a mystery and it's supposed to keep people guessing, but there's no sense of build-up or tension leading to the two making a discovery, which is pretty much the worst thing a mystery movie can do. The same can also be said for other supporting characters who aren't villains. All of these characters are pretty much a waste of time that don't contribute anything meaningful. I suppose the slacker dude back contributes a little bit with the half-assed romance between him and Leo, but that's not exactly a good contribution. There were some elements to characters as well that were just plain bizarre. One example involves a British woman who speaks in English the entire time throughout the movie, yet anytime she interacts with someone, they always speak back to her in French, and then she responds back in English. I don't understand why the movie couldn't have just hired a French actress for this part, because the dialogue feels unnatural. And this leads into the comedy of the movie, which is pretty weak to put it mildly. Most of the time it's immature without any real wit behind it, especially as far as the police boss and Hansel and Gretel are concerned. And that's when there even is comedy. Most of the time it's just throwaway lines and slapstick situations that feel just as lazy as the rest of the movie. I did notice casual displays of both bigotry and political correctness that I think were supposed to be funny, but they just felt awkward in delivery. One moment someone will be insulting Germans, Italians, or the physically disabled, and in the next someone will be chastised for saying someone is black or a hot chick. There's no consistency behind it, and it just doesn't make any sense. It may not sound like it, but there are some things to enjoy about this movie. For starters, the action scenes are pretty well done, especially as far as the brawls are concerned. There's a good amount of effort put into the fight choreography, even if it is basic in nature, and it helps break up the tedium of the story. Unfortunately, these action scenes are few in number, so there's a long wait involved before getting to them. It's a shame it focuses so much on its unfunny comedy, because it wouldn't be as repetitive if it was able to strike a balance between comedy and action. I also enjoyed how the movie took advantage of its setting in Nice. The coastal scenery and architecture of the area adds a nice layer of both mystery and tranquility, which would be perfect for this movie if it was good at carrying both of these elements with everything else going on. That being said, I found it unusually grandiose in presentation for what should be a fairly ordinary buddy cop feature. The aerial cinematography of massive seascapes, the orchestral soundtrack, and just the overall tone of the movie felt off to me. I can't tell if it's trying to be more serious on account of the murder, or if it's more lighthearted on account of the comedy, and trying to be this epic in scale doesn't help in clarifying things. Throughout the movie, it pushes a very shallow and on-the-nose observation on climate change and how fossil fuels are bad. I think everyone knows by now that fossil fuels are not a good thing at all, so trying to preach about it this much to the point that an entire event is centered around promoting fossil fuels and has to be stopped is just groan-inducing. Overall, Nice Girls is a bad crime comedy that does the bare minimum with its unoriginal plot and characters in trying to be entertaining. If you like buddy cop comedies and don't want to think too much in terms of plot, you might enjoy this movie, but honestly, there's way better ones like this out there. It's not the worst buddy cop flick I've seen, but there's so many better options out there than this one with its stale characters, unfulfilling mystery, and lame comedy. I'm sure the people involved in the making of this movie are nice enough, but this movie is definitely not. What did you think about this movie? Were you also bored by it, or did you find it funnier than I did? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Nice Girls. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the American teen comedy, Incoming. Bye bye!